Maniego, second by Commissioner Stout. Voting is open. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Item 7B, receive a presentation regarding the ongoing FY2024 multi-year capital planning process. Further discuss and take appropriate action regarding the capital finance plan submitted by the Bond Advisory Committee to Commissioners Court.
Welcome, Jose.
Good afternoon, Judge, Commissioners. Jose Almeida with County Administration. We have worked over the past week with our consultants to verify a few things. We did update some of the figures that were pointed out to us during our conversation last week. There were some changes, but overall the dollar amounts remained as a whole consistent. A lot of the variations that were identified were either because of some formulas simply not adding up in a lot of the spreadsheets that our consultants and our staff have been working on, or in most cases there was a contingency budget that was adjusted. And so that has been reconciled. The amounts still remain the same. It doesn't affect the amount of projects that the BOAC or could have recommended for the CO or GO. Additionally, on the communications side, we did work closely with Barracuda to develop a few options. We did hand that out to some additional information to you and your staffs today that really focuses on a few things, and primarily some options for mail if the court wanted to proceed with a more targeted mail approach as opposed to going with the mail piece going to every single home with a registered voter. The cost of those mail pieces start to decrease significantly. Additionally, also some texting options, and the same thing there, that there's really just depends on how much targeting the Commissioner's Court would like to direct staff to proceed with in terms of sending messages reminding voters about the upcoming process. And then the very bottom of that document, you also see the cost for online advertising and how targeting by zip code and geofencing, what those options begin to look like. So Mr. Israel Irvali with Barracuda is on the line to walk the court through those options, and I'll go and turn it over to him.
Welcome, Israel.
Test 1 2.
Hey, Israel, we can't.
Test 1 2. Hold on, Israel. Can you try talking, Israel? We can't hear you, and we have you unmuted on our end.
Can y'all hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Right.
We can hear you. You can go ahead.
So, good afternoon, Judge Samaniego and Commissioners Court. I first want to apologize for the technical difficulties. I had to switch over to my iPhone just to make it a little bit easier here. So what I want to start out with was just the plan from the beginning. What we have in the current plan is a TV budget of $20,000, and that's going to be spread throughout KVIA, Telemundo, Univision, and OTT. We're also going to pursue radio advertisements within this budget, as well as $3,000 for targeted social media. advertisements, looking at zip codes and meeting locations, making sure that we really saturate the market around those areas to encourage them to get there, as well as the press releases and pitches. And then we'll wrap up what we have so far with the stakeholder emails. I know that y'all have received these emails in the past. We have amplified and enhanced these stakeholder lists with the individuals that participated in each of the phase 1 meetings, as well as added additional members that felt that they would like to be included. So then that will take us to today, and I really just want to focus on the highlighted components. So as we really look at the options that lie before us for the mail, we wanted to make sure that we were offering an option that was more precise and strategic, recognizing that we want to get and amplify the message as best as we can. So the two options that are before you really focus on registered households that have voted in the past 2 general elections. And the first one is going to be for unique households. The reason we don't do unique individuals is because there tends to be couples, kids, multiple folks living in a house. And so we wanted to target it to households. And that amount will be 21,131 individuals. And that amount, is going to be the 13,999. The other one is going to be for unique addresses, which is going to be the 19,840. And that amount is going to be the 12,999. And then before I move on to the next piece, I wanted to see if there's any questions on this component.
Yeah, tell me again, please, what is the difference between the first unique and the second unique?
So the first unique is going to be based on the record of the surname at the address. And then it's the second one. So that means, for example, if Nirabali and Asaldavar both live at my address, then you'll get 2 because there's 2 unique household pieces there. Whereas unique address is just going to be for that one address. So it's going to be my address of my home.
Okay, thank you.
So it's going to be based on your surname and who's at the home. Okay, that's going to take us to the next component, which is going to be the text, which is another component that we were asked to look into. And so for this one, there are 4 components that go into the structure of the fee. The first one is originating the text from a 915 area code number. Important because, as it's political season right now, we see as these text messages go out, when it comes from a 915, it adds a sense of legitimacy and credibility. The next thing is going to be the message profile, which is going to be a flat fee, one-time fee. And then it's the MMS and SMS character text combination. That is going to be a price per text that goes out. And then the last fee is going to be the management fee for the text responses to it. And that covers just the human staff that kind of responds to the text messages from the target audience. And so if we drop there, you can see it's quite a robust list. So as of May 19th, there are 509,000 registered voters. And so as we look at the number of verified phone numbers and points of contacts, that number goes to 188,839 phone numbers. And so as we look at the example of the cost breakdown, the overall list and the initial focus of reaching every individual who's a registered voter with a verified phone number is going to equal $15,107.12. Now, once we proceed in that way, we'll be able to dwindle down the cost of the next round that we have. We'll be able to be more strategic, more aligned with, these zip codes are not answering the survey, these neighborhoods aren't attending these meetings, and then we can be a little bit more precise and really start targeting folks and get more in depth into data. Are there any questions on the text messaging?
Yes, I've got a question on I didn't realize if it was text or phones, but it's 8 cents per message. Is that phones or is that text message only?
It's going to be 8 per text that is sent out.
Per text, okay. Okay, thank you.
Can I clarify that, Israel? Because I've had one of these text messaging things before. So if it's 8 cents per message, but I send it to 2,000 phones, it's 2,000 times 8 cents, correct?
Correct, yes, ma'am. And then the reason why you see the total cost go up from that 15 107 is because of those other components that I mentioned at the beginning that go into that total structure. So to reach every individual who's a registered voter with a verified phone number in El Paso County with those additional services and fees, you're looking at the $15,482.12. And that's just for the 188,839 messages. If we go back out for a second message, you would then multiply the 0.08 times the number of messages that you would like to send out.
So if I may add, Judge, so that number, that 15,000 number, it's important to clarify that it's for all the verified phone numbers that the vendor has access to. And so that would be landing in every cell phone that is verified, and everyone would receive that notice. As you start coming down in that list, you can see that same with the mail. If we start targeting, the numbers obviously start to reduce quite significantly. And so if we wanted to look at known voters, we might be able to message them more frequently. Or as Israel mentioned, in the event that we had an area that didn't have a lot of attendance in the first meeting and we really want to promote the second and third meeting, we could really focus on that. So effectively, with the budget that remains of $60,000, if the court went with the mail option and with these text messaging prices, and you had a more targeted universe, you could send one mail piece and three text message blasts to all 188,000 voters. And that frequency of 3 goes up if we start targeting and we don't have such a broad universe, right? If we say voted in at least 2 elections in the past 4 years, you know, it's roughly half, a little over half of that 188,000 number. We'd be able then to do 5 or 6.
No, I'm sorry, Jose. I agree. I think that if you look at the, you know, if you go for the last 12 elections, if you narrow it down to the last 4 or 5, I think it's a huge difference. And that would it make a huge difference money-wise also?
We have the $60,000 as a not to exceed. What would increase really is the frequency at which how many times we could message folks. Right. And maybe do one mass text at the beginning and then one mass text at the end to say we're starting, we're wrapping up, and then in the middle, a combination of smaller, more focused text messages to each individual precinct. And because they are MMS, we can also send a photo, and that photo can have the QR code automatically linking to the website, and so we can share more information, and not just in terms of words, but also in terms of an image.
And Jose, would you know where it reads voted in the last 6 elections? How far back is that in years?
4 years.
4?
Past 4 years.
Right, they kept it all.
And so all the elections that have
Oh,
happened
okay.
between
All
2020
4
and
years,
now.
okay.
So the 2020 primary, the 2020 runoff, the primary runoff, the 2020 uniform, any special elections in the summer, the general, and then that would continue on until today.
If there's no further questions on the text messaging component, this will take us to the last item, which is online targeted display. I'm sorry. And as you can see from the document, it's a targeted display. It's going to be by zip code, so it's not going to be geofenced. So we're going to be able to be strategic here. And then it kind of goes back to what we're saying is having a criteria. So we have a confirmed target audience, again, limiting it to households, registered voters, and then voted in the last national state elections, voted in 2016, voted in 2012. And then the $11 CPM, that's the cost per 1,000 impressions. And then it requires a minimum investment of $2,000 to go down this route.
And Israel, could you explain which platform the targeted display and the online advertising would be on?
Yeah, so it's going to be through Trade Desk. It's one of the vendors, and so it'd be a cross-platform. So it'd be really on the the search menus, Google's, things like that. So as you search through the internet, it's going to pop up. Not specified to social media. That completes the presentation. I don't know if there's any additional questions.
So Judge Commissioners, with that $60,000, you know, in evaluating what these cost estimates are, we feel comfortable that we can proceed with the existing budget and not require additional funding, as we previously discussed and presented last week. That $60,000 will allow us to do, as you can see here on your sheet, if we go with the unique address option of about $13,000, that is, you know, as Israel mentioned, if you have a Martinez and an Hernandez in the same households, but they're married, they would each, under that middle option, receive a mail piece. That last option gives them one mail piece for the entire home. And so the way we would address it would be to our neighbors to the voters at that address, not specific to any one individual. The mail piece has been designed by Barracuda. We shared a copy of that. We're making the modifications in terms of the language to make sure that it's emphasizing Spanish on one side, English on the other. But that effectively is ready to go. And the turnaround for that, if we give the printer the new design and go, you know, could be in mailboxes by beginning of next week, in time for the meeting schedule that would begin on the 29th which is next Wednesday, which would be our first meeting. And then we would ask for, so that's one action item for the court to consider giving staff direction on. And then additionally also looking at the other changes to proceed with texting. Does the court have a preference on sending out one mass message to all 188,000 phones to begin, and then we dial that back in subsequent messaging, or would you all like to proceed? Do you have any preference on how you'd like to proceed in that arena with the text messaging?
Judge? Okay, so the proposal is to do a general mail out, and that cost would be about $16,000, is that it?
No, the option we'd recommend is that unique address option for $13,000.
The one for $13,000?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And then also do the texting?
Yes, sir.
How many-
Texting.
How many times of the texting?
That's where we're asking for some discussion. We could, you can see here the cost to send 188,000 messages is
15,000.
And so we could, with a budget of 60,000, you take out that mail piece of 13,000, there's a balance of 47,000. We still want to do some online advertising in terms of the ads that you see on websites and things like that. There's a minimum investment of 2,000. And so, you know, we're looking probably at about 45,000 being available for texting. And so if we did the texting at 45,000, you could do roughly three large 188,000 messages, but I don't think that's what we would recommend. We recommend a more focused approach, like with the mail, to allow us to do more frequency, which is really what's going to matter at this point in the game.
But Jose, wasn't that frequency to smaller numbers?
Yes, and that's what I was,
So-
we could do one to begin, and then subsequently, we could do smaller messages, smaller batches to more reliable, known voters as we move forward.
But
right?
the one mass, I've got a question on that. Why would we want to do it knowing that most of them are not going to be voting?
So I believe it's to any registered number, right? Any of those numbers. And it would be to notify everybody of, like, we're having these meetings, come out to participate, and it'd have a QR code to take them to a place where they could go online and do survey. And so it'd be one broad outreach. And then correct me if I'm wrong, Jose, then we would do, if we're about to have the meeting in precinct 1, the numbers that are registered with that area, we would send a message reminding them, don't forget to attend tomorrow evening, 5:30, community outreach meeting.
And we could look to see, and in Israel, I'm not sure if we have this functionality, you can speak to this, but ideally it would be, here's a list of all the precinct 1 meetings, and we only send a message to the voters that are in precinct 1, 2, 3, and 4. That way it's already kind of, from the beginning, we're still sending 188,000 messages, but they're more focused to the communities that are associated with each of the precincts on the Commissioner's Court. Israel, were we able to do that with the vendor?
Yes, sir. Just my understanding that once we kind of get that access that master list of the 188, we can piece and parcel it however we want, by precinct, by zip code, by radius around one of the meeting locations, so we can really pick and choose and play with how we would like to proceed.
And so the more focused options might be sending out one mass 188,000 message, and then picking, as we approach the meeting dates, picking perhaps more known voters that are more likely to be engaged, more likely to want to come out to learn a little bit more about this process, that are within a 2-mile radius of the meeting location, right, or in the same zip code. To say tonight, there's a meeting down the street, or tomorrow night, there's a meeting down the street, please come out. So that's a little bit where it's a combination of a broad brush to try and reach as many people as we can, but then also really focusing on the location and meeting sites as well.
And that one mass is about 15.1?
Yes, so
15,001.
you see that total cost there is 15,500. And that is, some of those are fixed costs that won't be repeated every time. But to send that, we're looking at about 15,000 every time we message 188,000.
Then as we break it down into precincts, are we still going to be within the 60,000?
Yes, so we wouldn't, I think the recommendation would be to send out one mass message if the court is in agreement with that. And then as we start moving into the meetings, do more focused targeting of residents and perhaps known voters that are within a certain radius of the meeting sites to let people know, hey, this meeting is happening down the street, because those are the folks that are more likely to come out. And then because we've ensured that we have meeting sites across all of your precincts, we'll still ensure that we have some geographic diversity in terms of who comes out to the meetings and from where and what communities.
How many meetings are we going to have in each of the precincts in the second round?
3. It'll be 12 total.
Three more per precinct.
In addition to those 12, I also want to not forget, we are also doing meetings and outreach with different organizations. I think last time, this is some of the feedback you all gave us, but we were doing like some captive audiences, going to different professional organizations or community organizations, civic organizations, and presenting to those groups as well.
I'm good with the one mass text and then the targeted text to the precincts before the meetings.
Then, Judge Commissioners, I think what would be helpful for us is just a motion to direct staff to present the BOAC recommendations as modified by the Commissioners Court last week. If you all remember, there was modifications to a few of the projects. We've made those modifications to the project list, and then to adopt this outreach plan as presented today. And that'll give us the green light to start running ads and move everything along.
Judge, I had a question. Just real quick, I wanted to mention one more thing regarding the Coliseum, and I know we've talked about, possibly being able to use hot funds to be able to do a revenue bond, but again, I just want to advocate, I think it would be a mistake to not move forward with the Coliseum. It's a historic building. It's accessible from all parts of town, from Ciudad Juarez. It's completely paid for. I think we could do a lot for that building, and even with the Bridge of the Americas, were an issue. I just don't want the public or the GSA to think that we're taking actions that would look like we want to give it up, or that we're not interested. I could definitely see people saying, oh, the county didn't prioritize the Coliseum in its bond, and that means that they don't care about it. And I don't want it to serve as a reason for the GSA or anybody else to say that that project is not something that we want to prioritize. So I just wanted to mention that. I don't know if that would lower its value if they were to take it from us, and the amount of money that we might get from it if they did take it from us. I'm just very concerned that it's not there.
I agree, and I thought that we had, those were some of the projects that were going to be included, but in the list that I see the changes to the funding amount, but I don't see the inclusion of the additional projects that we had talked about.
No, that's right, yeah, that was missing from the backup, and so the additional
Okay.
projects were the Coliseum, the East Side Annex improvements,
Okay.
the improvements to Gallegos Park, and then the Sheriff's Substation along Mission
Okay.
Ridge. So those 4 projects will be included in the boards. So those boards are going to be produced and available at the meetings, and they're going to be included, and we are going to get the feedback from the public in addition to the other community partnership projects that we previously discussed with the court.
Okay,
Yes, ma'am.
great.
Okay, so it will be presented then?
Yes.
Okay.
And so just to clarify, these are not, no projects have been chosen, but just so that the public understands, these are the projects that are going to be brought back out to the public for more input and
Yes, that's
information
correct.
from the public.
Right. So we've narrowed the list down to these. These have risen to the top, but we still want more feedback from the public. And then when the folks come to the meeting, they're also being given a takeaway that explains the financial constraints the county has, what some of the terms that they'll use during the meetings are, so that residents continue to have that piece of information as they move forward through this process, ultimately into November if an election is called.
And one more question, Jose. I know we've talked to you about it, but there's a number of downtown property owners through the downtown management district that have expressed an interest in a capital fund that could be repaid with historic tax credits, which are only paid back after the work is done. So, many times the impediment to renovation is typically lack of capital, upfront capital. And so I know that there's lots of work out, but I think the concept is simple. If the county can provide upfront capital, it's got a built-in payback mechanism via the tax credits. Is that something that we can use bond funds like this for?
We would need to work with bond counsel to determine definitively whether or not that would be allowed. In some of the preliminary conversations that we've had on that topic, the answer's generally been that it's not permissible to use these because this is more of an operating fund, but it's definitely something that at the staff level we could look to do, because it effectively becomes a revolving loan fund, except the repayment is tied to the tax credit, which is a little bit more secure of a repayment form versus a private business having to make those loans. And the DMD's support of the planning process thus far that the county received did include a note to establish some sort of assistance for historic property owners in the downtown area, or for the county to make investments in the downtown area. And so
Yeah, I think that would help not only with some of the efforts that we want to embark upon to help folks tap into tax credits, right, with the creation of the Segundo Barrio District, and still, hopefully, that's still pending, the downtown historic district. I mean, part of the reason why we wanted to create those is so that people would have access to those tax credits, but again, it's the upfront capital that's difficult for people to come up with.
I know Jose mentioned talking to bond counsel. I don't think that would qualify. We've had other requests in the past to be able to use bond money for some other private rebuilding of something or investment into something, and it's not been allowed. But there may be another mechanism to do that. we need to look into possibly with hotel occupancy tax, creating some kind of fund through that mechanism, or some kind of loan guarantee program through hotel occupancy tax. But it's definitely something we can explore if the court's interested. And I do think that's a huge barrier to so much of the remodeling and the modernization, but maintaining historic preservation.
Yeah, and I know that we've had projects in the past where we've had revolving loan funds, and it kind of didn't work very well, but because this would be like tax credit based, I think it would be a little bit different and a better opportunity.
Judge, may I? And have we checked into with our, not just our legal counsel, but our bond counsel about being able to use different terminology for these meetings?
Yes, so one thing
I don't think the
that-
public really gets the message that this is proposed bond projects.
Yes, sir.
And are we prevented from doing that?
No, sir, so we did clarify that, and moving forward, we will be using the language that the county is going out for, is looking for feedback on a potential bond as early as November of 2024. And so our concern at the staff level is always ensuring that we're not putting the court in a position where it's being said that you're doing something that you may or may not be doing, right? Because the court still has not yet called an election. And so that will be something that we also feel, in speaking with Barracuda and our communications team here, that will have more turnout because people will be more interested in hearing a little bit more about the county's potential bond issuance in the future.
And we can't, even though we haven't discussed the issue of whether to go out for bonds or not, we're not able to tag some other language to it, like forward or onward looking El Paso, or El Paso, vote El Paso County, just vote. I know we can't do that particular phrase yet, maybe later, because we're not advocating for or against it, we're just advocating that people go out and vote.
Would defer to the county attorney's office, who have been closely in coordination with bond counsel to answer that question.
Good afternoon, Judge and Commissioners. Claudia Aranda, Assistant County Attorney. Just to clarify, if it's pre-measure, Commissioner, right now there could be any sorts of language. It's a little bit more free, right? What we can say, what we can put in the mailers and the text messages. We just have to be a little bit more careful because if that is still around after the measure is called, it becomes a measure, right? Once the election is called, and it can only be informational. Strictly informational, and that's when we have to be really careful about what kind of language we use because it could be interpreted as political advertising. So just once it is called, then everything needs to stop and just be purely informational.
So assuming that the court decides to call for a bond election in August, after that, can our language say to people that we reach out, vote El Paso? We're not saying vote against it or for it. We're just saying, please go out and vote.
I do believe that you are always able to encourage the citizens to vote, right, for whether it's a bond or anything else, to go out and vote. But we just have to be very, very careful to not make it seem like you're saying vote in favor of the bond.
Go out and vote.
Right.
Yeah, and we'd be happy to, once we have specific language, with the department and the assistants at Barracuda, to just relook at everything. These are various Texas Ethics Commission opinions that are very fact-specific. So if maybe we think some of the words it's more like advocacy or not, if it's just vote, maybe that's fine, but we can assess that once we have the language after the measure is called.
Right. And right now, could we attach safe language to attract people to the meeting, forward El Paso, proposed bond measures or whatever?
That one I know we have specifically discussed with bond counsel, and they've said no.
Okay.
Commissioner, a lot of the risk comes with these materials surviving right now with no bond measure in place.
Right.
There's no issue, but then if these materials continue to survive and there is an issue placed, then it could be that we were engaging in political advertising with the understanding that we would eventually go out for a political measure, and I think that's where some of the risk and the concern comes in. And so in an abundance of caution, we've narrowed that down, but we have discussed ensuring that we can use the word bond And that's more an operational issue because now we know, one, BOAC has recommended it, and two, you all are set to consider voting on that. And so at this point, again, we feel comfortable now letting people know there's a potential bond on the way and come learn more about it.
What about using the word prepare El Paso or plan El Paso for these meetings?
So Commissioner, we did give different mottos, logos. All of them brought back that same concern, that it could be interpreted that, and, you know, we were just, as you all recall, I think you all got this in executive session, but we got an overview of all the legal risk and concerns. And all of those risk and concerns go along with just about any of those messages that we thought were very basic and direct, but there really wasn't a safe option.
Like even plan El Paso?
We could ask specifically for that plan, El Paso, but
Yeah, that's-
we had like vision, we had forward, we had,
We had a lot of mock-ups from the Barracuda team, and we had a specific call with bond counsel, and that's where some of the changes to a more generic multi-year capital plan.
Yeah, and I could see maybe where there's something that says like vision, but whatever, that could be interpreted as acting forward, but plan? I don't know about,
and I'm, of course, it'll depend about the time when the court gets to the decision of making an order for an election or not, but there will probably be other parties out there who will do that separately from the county. Organizations that would love to see advancements or see some of these improvements, or those who might be opposed. But I think you may have other organizations with messaging out there with some kind of plan El Paso or invest or something of that nature.
okay.
But if the court's in agreement, we can work to see if we can activate some of those older designs and branding with Barracuda. But we'll have to, run it by the bond counsel once more, just to make sure that if there is more flexibility, how we can achieve that. And if not, then we'll stick with the consistent logo and brand that we've launched, but the messaging around it will be different this time, at a minimum.
Okay.
Then one last component before the court considers any action, just an update on outreach strategists. We did have a kickoff meeting with them. We'll be meeting pretty regularly. They are working on getting us a timeline, and we'll share that timeline with you all, where they will conduct focus groups, one per precinct. We did discuss the need to ensure that there's diverse representation across all different parts of the county, especially given some of the socially vulnerable communities that we have here in the county. So they're putting that plan together, and we'll share more details with the court as that becomes available. One item that affects the outreach with Barracuda and outreach strategists at the same time is the online survey. In person, we are going to ask for feedback on all 100 projects. The exercise that we'll be running through this week with your staff and with our departments allows for it to be done in person. We do have a concern that online you'll have survey fatigue if you try and ask for that. And I know we discussed this last week. And so we've had some coordination with the consultants just this morning, actually. And so they're really looking at perhaps prioritizing the categories of projects and creating additional resources for folks to learn about what type of park projects, what type of first-time water and wastewater projects, but letting it be a very high-level collection of data to ensure that the public's able to give us feedback on category. And so wanted just to apprise the court of that, because it is a little bit of a different set of data that will be collected in person versus online through these surveys. But in coordination with them, with our two consultants, they feel that that's the path forward that they would recommend, just to ensure that we do get as much feedback as possible, but also recognizing that we want to create this repository of information in case members of the public do want to take the deep dive and give us more information. We have that information there, and perhaps a common feedback form for people to submit that information if they'd like. So it'll be a combination of survey data that's collected by Barracuda and by Outreach, and then the very deliberate 100 project questionnaire effectively for the in-person meetings. Thank you. So then if the court would consider the motion to, yeah, oh, that's right, sorry, I haven't been up here when you all vote anymore, now that you've changed it. Sorry, I apologize.
I have a motion by Judge Samaniego, second by Commissioner Leon. The voting is open. Judge, are you able to vote? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you, Judge, Commissioners.
Thank you, Jose.
If I may, I apologize. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank all of the hardworking county staff, a lot of whom are recognized today during Public Works Week. Some of them are here, but the hours that Public Works has dived into this, operations and communications in terms of being out there and working with our consultants and then the county attorney's office and their coordination with us internally and our BOAC as well. It's been a very amazing process to see all of these different points of view and ideas come together into this process, and so it's been amazing to see how that come together. So we thank you for your support.
And that goes to Jose and Melissa and their teams as
Yeah,
well.
thank you, guys.
Item number 8, Auditor. 8A, pursuant to the Texas Local Government Code, Section 114.023, 114.024,